Scott Geurin, thank you for being on today.
Sure.
Greatly appreciate it. I think this will be an interesting podcast. I think religion and spirituality is, for people my age especially, becoming more and more of a conversation.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
So I wasn't sure. I know you spent some time. You're a Lutheran. You're born
Yep.
and introduced into Lutheran church at a young age.
Yep. Yeah. I was raised in a Lutheran church, and we did. I have three siblings, and my parents. We all went, and at one point, what was after? Maybe I was in high school. We all decided. We collectively we kind of said, well, it's time to move on, and we moved on to actually some of us went into it, like we're in the born again Christian movement, for a number of years. Um, I liked it. It appealed to me because I was even as a Lutheran in sixth grade. I was zeroed in on the homilies. I wasn't a good student in any other aspect of my life, but I was just fascinated with learning. I just needed to learn,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of where my track was. And then when we went and we left the Lutheran church because it wasn't passionate. We didn't feel it was like grounded much or practical. And then I liked the conservative, non-denominational venue, because there wasn't robes, everybody spoke plainly, there was certainly everything was referenced to the Bible, all the answers were kind of mapped out. And I was in that for, like 6 years or so, 6 or
Mhm.
7 years. And then, and my friends really, and I don't mean to be judgmental or anything like that, I'm telling you what my experience was that my friends came and said, "Look, Scott, there's more than what you're saying here. You're saying that people who don't, aren't following your view of religion is going to be, severely judged." And I kept saying, "No, no, it's unconditional love." And then it kindly dawned on me that it really wasn't unconditional love. There was a lot of conditions, and not only conditions, but it was conditions or else type of thing. And so then I broke away from that and went into the Presbyterian church, which is I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's it doesn't have a hard line, like say the Baptists are very much hard line, the born agains are hard line. You got to go this way. You got to, Jesus is your savior, and that's it. Presbyterianism, takes a softer approach to that. So I was in that denomination, and whatever I did, whatever group I was in, I'd do 100% what was expected. Like, in the Presbyterian church, I was an elder. I taught Sunday school for 12 years. I did all those things, and then and my life still fell apart, and that's when I kind of launched out of organized religion in general and pursued spirituality outside of anything organized. And I kind of continued my path.
Well, I also was introduced to the first church when I was little, was a Lutheran church.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I was
Great.
bored out of my mind. Sunday school was fun, but
Yeah.
other than that, when
Yeah.
I was old enough to decide for myself that I wasn't going anymore, I wasn't going anymore. I wanted to ride around in town on my bike and play with my friends instead, and I fell out of the church that way for a lot of years. But I am, God's always been something in the back of my mind throughout life, and I never would have
Mm,
said that I don't believe in God. I
mm,
always kind of said, well, you don't have to go to church to worship God. I
mm,
mean, I don't believe that. I don't think
mm.
that's a requirement. I don't think God, if he's there, is that vain and that, well, you got to go to church and or
Right.
else you're not welcome into heaven when you die. I don't think he goes there.
Yeah.
So, but now as of late, it's just strange how everybody, is getting in touch with, especially the youth. They haven't really been religious, and I think probably church numbers have been lower, throughout my generation than historically speaking.
Mm,
But now there seems to be people, and my spiritual's been there dipping their toes in the water of religion. Oh, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual.
right. Right.
And then
Exactly.
I asked them, well, what does that mean? what do what is your belief system in that regard? Spiritual to what? And yeah, I think it's probably an answer that a lot of people struggle with. And people are, because people, they want to believe in things of the church, but they don't want to believe in a lot of the requirements, or if you don't follow requirements, the negative repercussions of that.
Right. Yeah.
So people struggle with that in their lives, I think. And but I know with just politics and the Charlie Kirk assassination, things like that, people are really starting to connect with it again. You've got some years on me, and you have a lot of experience in the church. You're a PhD. You've got a master in human development. I mean, you're very well educated. So you approach probably things with a different approach, mental approach. I like to approach things analytically. So
well, same with me.
yeah, and logically. So when I read the Bible, I read through Genesis, and I'm just like, boy, I really want to challenge the logic here. Just certain things, and I don't want to use the pass of, well, you just got to have faith, and just believe it. And I do understand there's some of that, but I look for logic in things, and I think it should almost slap you in the face with, okay, this makes sense, but it's challenging. So how has your journey through that been? And
well, one little story was when I was in the born again phase. I went to a conservative Christian seminary at nights. I thought I was gonna be a minister, or I wanted to be a minister. And then about 3/4 of the way through, it was a 3-year program. At the beginning of year 3, I kept on like asking these questions, like, well, that doesn't make. How does that make sense to like this? And I wasn't being a butthole about it, but I kept on getting like, well, Scott, let's talk after class about this, right? So then there were so many of these questions that I said, so you're just asking. So I'd say, like, why don't you just tell people this is the reason, is that you're just believing it. Like, that's all. No other reason is needed. I'm like, yeah, no, not really. But anyway, so that kind of happened there. But for me, I was wondering what to do next, and I kind of distanced myself from church, and then I got into meditation, just meditating, because that was kind of benign in a sense, religious, affiliations with that, quieting my mind and just getting into that nature, just kind of breathing it all in, that, that God, was in everything and part of everything, just experiencing that. Probably for 6 or 8 years. And then I'm like, well, I want to study more, but I don't want to go back to seminary. So then I'm like, you know what? Psychology is it. Like that's the study of the mind and how we perceive spiritual things, how we perceive ourselves, how, consciousness, all those things. That greatly appealed to me. It was the best time in my life. It took 5 years. I kind of made a mistake, and I went and got a master's degree at a school in psychology, and then I wanted a doctorate, but then that doctoral program had a master's program with it, and like you couldn't separate it out. So that's how I happened to just keep going with that. But and then I just centered on human development, human development on all aspects: biological, cognitive, emotional, cultural. And then it wasn't in the curriculum, but I kind of added it in, spiritual development. How do people first get the inklings that there's something outside of yourselves? But going back to, 1-year-old babies, what's the theories about that? What can they think about? So that's when I kind of started, ripping everything apart, in a sense, like, and then, that's how it kind of broadened my definition of God, certainly from the religious aspect. There's 4,200 denominations or different religions in the world, and most of 80% of the world is Judeo-Christian, Muslim, Hindu, or Buddhism. But there's obviously thousands of other ones that have lesser followings. So just kind of explored all that, and that was a wonderful time in my life.
I think you almost have to. That was one of the things I've always, when I grew up, and and I was watching people be quite religious. And you'd hear things, well, do you know about the Dead Sea Scrolls? And did you know that Jesus might have had a wife and all this stuff? And I said, well, if you're going to, build your life, quite religious people that shape their life around the Bible and the teachings and are are you researching this beyond just the Bible?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's a lot of history behind the Bible and why it is the way it is today. And if you're going to heavily base your life in that, you should probably research it, and it's a substantial part of your life. So
Yeah.
that's always been something with me. I mean, I'd love to ask your opinion on, the Book of Enoch and Jubilee and all these ones that have been pulled out of the Bible that, maybe today modern authorities wouldn't like to have in the
Right.
Bible.
Yeah, well, those 66 books in the Christian and Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew Bible is the Old Testament, Christianity, New Testament, and how they came together. Just kind of a consolidation over years. Different councils and stuff came together, and then it's like, okay, somebody said, all right, that's it, and then of course the Catholics wanted another six books or so in their version. Okay, all right, then now that's it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of go with that, but there's many other books out there of written about spiritual things. The infancy narratives I always found interesting, that there is a book written about Jesus when he was an infant and a toddler, and
I didn't even know that.
He did kind of strange things, and people, he was just detached, but one of them said, some kid, I guess somebody came and pushed him down on the ground, and he goes, you push me down and I get up, and I push you down and you don't get up. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's true or not, I don't know, but there's those types of books out there.
It's true, and obviously you've dived deep into that on your journey through life, and now I think you've pulled in, like you say, a whole lot of other aspects
Yeah.
into your vision of what spirituality and religion
Yeah.
is, and maybe what a lot of this stuff means.
Yes.
So, how has that developed for you?
Well, from the meditation times of meditation, and then even in those days when I was doing that, I studied the different types of meditation, and part of my schoolwork, I delve into meditation techniques and how it impacts your emotions and health, and there's tons and tons of studies on meditation, because a lot of meditation techniques are the same, they're the same thing, so it's easy to study in the sense that you get this group of people, doing this meditation, and and it's all the same, and then you can see how they respond. But and I felt very comfortable with that, but I wanted to know something a little more specific. Maybe I missed the structure and the details of the organized religion. I don't know what, but I said, I want to learn something a little bit more specific. So then angels popped into my mind. That angels are good. They're widely accepted in multiple religions. They seem all friendly. Except for maybe the dark angels or demons and stuff. But so that's when I started out, and then I was putting a book together called Looking for Angels, and then I just do a brief chapter on each of the main religions, like what do they think of angels, how do they how does it fit into their theology. And then I did a scientific approach of angels, which kind of pushed the boundary a little bit, knowing that we talking about headphones and microphones and cameras, that's all we are. Our sight only picks up 0.004% of all the energy that's bombarding us every day, the X-rays, radio, TV, gamma, all that stuff. And that our eyes, filter out we see the visual sight is a very narrow band. Certainly our hearing is not as broad spectrum as, even animals in this world. And then, smell and taste as well. It's all like feeding into, it's like we're going through the world with microphones and cameras and assimilating this in our head. And that's our reality, that's our physical reality. And that's not everything that's happening. Like there's other things going on. You know, I can't see at my microwave. Nothing emanates from that I can see. And then you start making the step over to say, well, maybe there's other life forms, or maybe life exists beyond the body, and we can't see that either. And so that's when I started getting into that, and certainly good amount of scientific research, concludes that there might be something of our conscious that is outside of our physical body. There's no proof of that, but so that's kind of where I started. Baby steps, saying, okay, is there something out there that I can't see and experience, and then what that may be and what that may be in. So that's when I kind of focused in on the angels for that book.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because physicists and theoretical physicists and everybody says, well, we acknowledge there's other dimensions. It's just
Right.
the laws
Yes.
of physics are proving that. And then you go to, someone who speaks to a medium and
Right.
they're being spoken to. And I've actually had family members in group, like stadium settings, that go to see these mediums. And
Wow.
there's very interesting things that get said there that this person could never know actually
Right.
about family members I've lost that they couldn't have made that up.
Right.
How is this?
Yes.
How is this possible?
Yeah.
And then you start to wonder about, well, the dimensional beings, and then you hear, who was it? The guy that the movie Fire in the Sky is based around him and how he was abducted, and his story about what he's seen on the ship, and it was these just other people and like other extraterrestrials that other people described in many times, and I'm like, I've always wondered, is this all connected somehow?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
And I say it is connected in one way, except as one author, I'm not familiar with Dolores Cannon. She has a book out called The Convoluted Universe. There's a lot going on, and some of it makes sense and works together. Some makes sense on some other realm that I don't know about. But that's what happened to me. I kept branching out, went to the angel. Well, and then I learned I wanted to say, okay, with angels. The co-author of my book, Looking for Angels, is a psychic intuitive, and her MOA is connecting her spirit team of angels, connects with her client's spirit team, and they discuss what this person needs to be, told during the session or whatever, and she conveys that. And through that and other people that she was friends with and I became familiar with, I kind of started getting into that and being aware and being open to a spirit team, to like maybe I do have a guardian angel, maybe Archangel Michael does speak to me, and maybe my parents who passed in 2020, maybe they are still around, and on all those parts I get absolute yes. I made those connections, and I feel a presence, especially through meditation. Even now they are here. They are here with me, and I can feel them. Sometimes I just get thoughts in my head that, like, I know I didn't think that thought. That thought. I'm writing or whatever it may be. Like something outside of myself is communicating with me. And when you open your mind and mainly open your mind to a possibility that's when things really start happening.
Well, that sounds awfully like a muse. People say you just start typing and things come to you, or what. But when you co-wrote a book with a person who is a psychic, I'm sure you went when you first met. What was her name?
Nicole.
Nicole.
Bailey. Yeah.
When you first met her, I'm sure maybe you weren't sold on the whole idea
No.
of psychics, and because I'm, by your education, you're probably, well, I'm not believing it until I have some data,
Yeah.
And so, what is skepticism like? How did that change just from a skeptic to, okay, now there's some actually changing my fundamental thought to this possibility of this stuff?
Yeah, well, and then Nicole and I both agree on that it's really good to be a healthy skeptic.
Yeah.
You go to a medium and so they say something, you have to have a level of discernment, when
Mhm.
no matter what you're looking at, and so with her, I knew it, because she never gave me a reading, but she's really pissed off at it. About she's like, we never had a reading. I'm like, well, you said it was free one time, and then you said maybe you charge me. But anyway, she would kind of pick up on things in my life. Like we'd be working on the book, and she was so there's a lot of stuff going on at home. Something about your sons. Like I didn't tell her that. And then other practical things were happening. Like we forgot the name of um, Siddhartha Gautama. The first Buddha. We forgot his first name. Like, and she'd be like, "Oh, I know that name." And then she'd go, "Oh, yes, thank you. It was Siddhartha. Yes, thank you." And I'm like, "Well, who are you thanking?" She says, "Oh, Archangel Michael just told me that name." So like
Mhm.
things like that, time and time again. And then I was able to work with her on her podcast, which is called A Psychic Story, where every week there's a guest on, and there'd be a medium, astrologer, energy healer, this and that. So listening to those people over time, like, yeah, it's the real deal. I mean, and as with everything, there are charlatans and there's people posers. Posing is that in anything, priests, business everywhere. So
Mhm.
you have to learn to have it, keep air of discernment on you. But when you do, you start saying like, yeah, there's something here. There's a connection that this person has that is supernatural.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different things, like you say. There's psychics and mediums. I'm not sure if they're kind of one and the same. There's remote viewers. There's
Yeah,
people that have vivid dreams.
yeah,
All kinds of. There's people that, the times I have went to church in the last few years. There's people that have stories there about how they became religious, and the stories they tell you they're unbelievable. Like
yeah,
something was happening there. Some of these people's stories,
yeah.
you get all these different puzzle pieces. What do you think they're shaping up to be? What
So,
is it?
you know, yeah. So for me, what happened to me was, you know what the Akashic records are?
No.
Okay, the Akashic records are ancient Hindu traditions came up with the term, and people, from different the metaphysical and spiritualists, understand what it is. It's a widely accepted concept, and what
Hmm.
it is, it's a record of every thought, word, and deed everyone does, from past lives to future lives. It's like a spiritual hard drive that contains everything. And so people can access the Akashic records when they feel lost or they feel, something's happening and they want to find out, like what can, find out how to help them. And the guides from the Akashic records, even though they know everything about this person, they don't just say, oh, you're going to do this, this, and this. They say just enough to guide them through the situation they're in, to help them on their journey. So I never had a reading like this. So I scheduled one with a person that I met on the show, Melissa Sparrow, another Canadian, by the
Hmm.
way, and
Hmm.
she was, just get in a little meditative state, and then she starts speaking like, your guides and angels are with you. They're here, and long story short, she said, they're giving you a scroll, and that scroll is going to be a book. Um, do you have any idea about that book? And I'm like, no. I mean, I finished the Angel book, a year ago, and I was thinking maybe something about awakening. And she says, that's it. That's the book. And she says, oh, by the way, your parents are here. Like, I didn't know that they appeared on a Akashic record reading. And and like, okay, like even then, like, yeah, so anybody could say, your parents are here.
Hmm.
Um, and she says, your mother's giving you a rose. What is that? Does that mean anything to you? And And she said, you picked it from some rose bush or something by your house. And the house I grew up in we had a rose bush that went up this whole side of the chimney of the house. And when I was a little kid, as soon as I saw a rose that bloomed or blossomed that I could reach, I'd pick it and bring it into my mom. And like that was a thing, you know. So like to me, like, okay, got it. That's a confirmation. And anyway, she says this book is going to help people in their journey of a new awakening to spirituality that hasn't been, that it's been around, but it's a time now where people need to get their arms around what's happening. In fact, that we're moving away from organized religion, becoming more spiritual than religious. And then I said, okay, I got that. I feel that. I get that. And then she says, oh, by the way, it's going to be galactic in nature. And I had no idea what that meant. No idea at all. She says, now, the next year, you're going to learn the material that you're going to put in this book. And so that's exactly what happened. I mean, unbelievable to me. I mean, you know, people, automatic writing, right? That's when you said people start writing. They just start writing. Their hands just start writing. For me, that happened on and off, over the years, fine, for like a page or so, but nothing major. Some people dictate books from spirit, from God, from sources. But for me, it was more just ideas, just kept me more, usually in the middle of the night, I'd get a thought, like, oh, what about, let's talk about how we are multi-dimensional people, that we're living in a third dimension, but that's just one, and there's ways to venture out into that, if we want. And then that would be a chapter, like those ideas would just come very strongly to me. Mm-hmm. And so the basic premise of this, and this is what my book is coming out in mid-November, is Awkward Awakening, where again, that shift, moving from religion to, maybe not moving away from religion as much as just embracing spirituality, the bigger picture of spirituality, more than ever, and that we are actually a part of the divine. We are not, God and us are not separate. We are all one in that, and that once humanity embraces that on this planet, that's when the first contact will happen. And the first contact meaning contact with our extraterrestrial neighbors, in a big way. I mean, they've been here all along, but open contact in many of the people that are into this space will agree that it's open contact, meaning, okay, you're now part of our galactic family. We can talk about commerce, trade, knowledge exchange, resource exchange, and then it'll just change everything from then on. And so that's kind of where I'm at now.
So that is a huge thought.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to touch on there, let's be honest.
Yes.
So you do think extraterrestrials, in the literal form of what we would say aliens, are out there, and they've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've kind of, with all this, the disclosure of the government disclosure and all that with UFOs, yes, and all the accounts, you think we're kind of getting used to that idea, and Skinwalker Ranch and all these different stories, and there's a dimension or a wormhole there. I mean, there's all these weird things that, the government has poured a lot of resources into actually researching. And some people have a lot of personal accounts of this. So, and then you get the Bob Lazar stories where there's, people are actually reverse engineering some technology that might be around.
Yes.
Well, it's been here. Go ahead.
Yeah. And in that range, in that regard, in my approach, you're like, yeah, there's thousands, of cases and YouTubes and now, now with deep fake video, the sky is going to be the limit on what we see. Yeah. But I mentioned that there is a lot out there, and it wasn't the purpose of what I'm doing now. So I just touched on the tangible experiences, which was all the U.S. military findings over the years. The big wow signal, back in, I think, 73. They heard a signal from a certain part of the sky that there was no known planets, blah, blah. But
That was Bell, I think. The Bell, wasn't it Bell Labs?
Yes, is
Yeah.
Bell Labs, right. And so, I went kind of through that where mainly there were, they did some investigations of the UFOs and then and UAEs now, but the last two I focused on were the whistleblowers that one of the last administrations put into law a protection program for people who wanted to report on things that they wanted to say but were either severely punished or reprimanded or silenced because they were saying things are happening. And the biggest thing was the crash retrieval programs. This one guy, Grush, in 23, used a whistleblower program, which is a protocol. You need to hire an attorney. It's like a case, like a court case. And he says that he would, while he was in the Army, Air Force, he was part of the program. Crash site, unidentified crash. Let's see what it is. Is it is it human? Is it not? And he said there was there were several crash sites that everyone involved says this is not from this planet. Material was not there. He didn't see any, but he said there were some non-human biologics involved in some crash sites, and they would report them over the years, saying Congress needs to know about this. People need to know about this. And he was told very forcibly, no, you do not. No one talks about this. And then he started to be retaliated in his in work at the Air Force. So he came forward and said that, and then September 9th, another hearing was conducted, subcommittee of the House, U.S. House, and then 3 more people came forward saying, yeah, we saw these things. We tried to, they're all around military bases, and they saw things happening. They saw interference. They saw dramatic things, and they wanted to share that with their colleagues and maybe you tell people about it. And they were severely reprimanded, and one person lost their job. They couldn't get a job anywhere in the Air Force again, and one person was threatened with her life, saying no one should know about this, and it's a big desert out there, and we'd hate to have you get lost in it, something like that. So I think because of that, I think things are coming out more and more.
I agree, and one side of me says, okay, how much of this is a psyop distraction from classified military technology? But
yeah.
But people have been reprimanded and their lives ruined. I mean, they went to great lengths to erase Bob Lazar's life and his.
Yes.
I believe he was at MIT, and they just tried to erase him. And he came forward to in his words, I think, to save his own life. If I go public. Yeah. Maybe I can't just disappear and be a news story at the end of the day. So there are things like that, which makes me think there's some truth to it. And this goes way back, decades ago to
in the 30s.
The 30s where it's highly unlikely that this U.S. government had technology like they may have today. Today you could almost say, we might have drones that can do that. But in the 30s, probably not. They would have had some pretty crazy things, I'm sure, but not like today. So.
What I've heard a couple times is that the numbers of UFO sightings increased dramatically after 1945, the advent of the atomic bomb. And it was the reason why was that humans, for the first time in history, became capable of destroying the planet. And so now most of the sightings occur, and they say the reasons why, but most of the sightings occur around military bases, and that could be because there's more cameras and sensitive equipment around them. But it could be that, one concept out there is that it could be that ETs are monitoring us so that we don't destroy ourselves or the planet. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think it's going to be becoming more prevalent in our society, and yeah, I think that's where it's headed.
It's interesting that you say that, if we reach kind of a, state where the world's somewhat at relative peace and we all kind of understand each other, that we might get more interactions with beings from out of this world.
Yeah.
It just makes me think of, Egyptian hieroglyphics where
Oh,
they
yeah.
depict meetings with this and they
Yes.
have the UFOs there. And that was obviously a totally different state in the world. Maybe they were a little closer to what you're describing, and maybe they had this technology exchange which allowed them to build the pyramids and things like that. I mean, that's a fun theory to think
Yeah.
about anyway.
Yeah, and that could explain Atlantis and Lemuria and why they just were destroyed or destroyed themselves or whatever. They got to a point and then they just messed up so bad that they had to be destroyed. You just don't know.
Well, it's a biblical story of the Great Flood.
Yes,
I
well,
mean,
yeah,
man got
yeah.
so bad that
Right.
it just had to be destroyed. Could all tie oddly together. I mean, there's a lot of coincidences, between the Bible and events in real life.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there are
without a
certainly
doubt.
are parts of the Bible that are historically accurate, and the truth, the truth of the core teachings of Jesus are just unbelievable. They are pure. It's
Yeah.
just that we've bastardized them and nationalized the teachings back again. But yeah, there's lots of truth and actual things, recounting of things that happened in the Bible. Certainly, other ancient scriptures.
So, do you think the ties between true religion, literally the Bible and Hinduism and all other types of the main religions, are tied to extraterrestrials then, or because I mean that's a
Yeah.
big step to take,
Yeah.
and it seems like you maybe are dipping your toes in the water of. I think that's maybe what religion is all about, is this bigger picture outside of our world.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think they overlap. Well, certainly like angels, right? When I did the angel book, I looked through, Archangel Gabriel and Michael, and then the story about the fallen angels, which could have been the Nephilim, in Genesis, which
Yeah.
caused all the trouble, right? Which had to be, other sources said that the archangels were tasked to rid the world of the Nephilim and their evil ways, and possibly that's what caused, that it caused the flood to do that. But yeah, so
Book
there
of
is.
Enoch
Yes, yeah, the Book of Enoch, crazy stuff, man.
ties right in though,
Yeah,
oddly
yes,
enough.
yes, yeah. What were the Nephilims? The meaning is, I don't know, something. Oh, sons of gods, sons of the gods, or giant. Was it giants? Right? There were. I know they were
Giants,
giants. I don't know if it was in the name or not.
Yeah. Well, if it was sons of gods, we're all supposed to be children of God.
Yeah, and and where I am now come to is that and I present in the book is that we are there is a oneness. There's a oneness of source, of God, of light, and we are part of that. God didn't create like I was taught. God was out there, and He created us down here. It's more like God exploded Himself and expanded Himself or itself into all creation. So everyone has a piece of God in them, and everything has a reflection of that. And that we're coming around to that. I think that one consciousness idea, science is kind of coming in to play. Was it Schrodinger said the number of minds in the universe is one, and people start saying like, oh, maybe we're in a simulation or something like. But those types of ideas that we're all more connected than we ever thought of, I think is where is a new concept, and it's going to take a while to prove itself out.
So that explosion you just made me think about the Big Bang. Maybe is that could be what you're referring to as the
Could
core
be.
of creation.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be. Neil Donald Walsh has a thing of his analogy is a mirror. That God shattered himself into trillions of pieces, in each piece. And we are one of those pieces, and so we have a reflection of God back. A quote from source from Islam said that God created God in his infinity condensed himself infinitely, and then that caused an explosion that caused him, it to be the universe, the Big Bang. It's kind of looking at that. So yeah, I think there are some tie-ins to that and how it all started.
Yeah, definitely a lot of wordplay that aligns there. So I know some people that just that I talk to and discuss about this think that maybe our life on Earth is a type of purgatory, and this we're in it, and this is where you're being judged to how is it going to go in the other dimension, and that ties a lot into Buddhist belief,
Yeah,
the karma
yeah. I
and
guess
things like that.
yeah, the purgatory I picked up as like a more of a punishment,
Yeah,
but
well,
maybe just a learning mode. You know,
there's
I
a
guess.
there's a lot of people in the world that maybe do feel like it's a purgatory. I mean, our lives are pretty good,
Yeah,
but oh boy, in other parts of the world, it's
right.
night and day different.
Yes, yes. That it is hard to fathom. Like why is this happening? And then you get the law. If you're familiar, the law of attraction, and those authors like the founders and people who are way into that say everything in your life that you attract everything in your life that shows up. I'm like, that's kind of tough to really grasp. People have been killed and raped and murdered and
Yeah,
suffer. They asked for this. Are you really sure about that? But
yeah. There's a lot of bad people that have very big boats and very nice airplanes.
yes, right, right,
Why aren't they the ones that are having the horrible lives? Because
right.
greed, and maybe screwing people over is what got them in the big house, really.
Yes,
And but maybe it's yet to come for them.
maybe.
And
Yeah, yeah. Justice isn't always seen. It's nice when justice occurs in this lifetime and you can witness it. Like yes, but
everybody loves
sometimes
insta karma.
yes, right.
Everybody
Yeah.
loves it. So what is your take on angels then? Do you believe in them in the religious depiction, or are they something different in your, like, are they something more physical?
Well, I think the way I experience angels, and when I get, what you do is you get into, a meditative state, and get a quiet mind, and then you meet with them. You meet with, we call it, Nicole and I in our book call it the spirit team, mainly because we couldn't come up with a better word for team, because it
Hmm.
seems kind of like, athletic event, like a cheerleaders,
Yeah.
but basically, we all have a group of spirit beings. It could be ascended masters, could be a deity, could be past loved ones, could be angels, some of the angelic realms, and then we both lately added ETs to that. So we're surrounded by a host of non-physical spiritual beings that are that understand what unconditional love is, because they're tapped into that. And so, personal experience, I'd say yes, I felt that. I've interacted with my spirit team, Archangel Michael, and sometimes not so much directly, but I'll be talking with someone and they'll say like, you know, you were, when you were telling me about something that happened, your Archangel Michael was right behind you, guiding you to say this or that, and they weren't there, but they somehow picked it up that that's what happened, and I feel it, I could it just resonated with me, like yeah, that I agree with that. That's how I felt. That something was helping me. Um, so yeah, so we all have we all have a spirit team, and big thing is I just forgot what I was going to say. Um, that we have to ask permission. That there is a universal thing that angels can't interfere with your life. Free will. I'm sorry, why I missed that. there is a free will clause in the sense that angels you have to ask before angels can act on your behalf.
Mm.
With the exception of guardian angels, that, from what I understand, they know your spirit. They know your journey through this life and what you plan to do, but before incarnating here, and they have already got your permission to intervene. The proverbial, car accident is averted, mysteriously, those types of things that they can intervene without you asking. But after that, if that's why intention and purpose is so important in our lives, so that our spirit team can help us make the connections, get the things done, get the information we need, and be supported all along. But we have to bring them in.
I think, what that makes me think of right away is nobody will ever tell you never trust your gut.
Yes,
It's
right,
always
right.
trust your gut. And you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
almost depict, pull out of that, hey, that gut feelings, that's that thing guiding you and that thing that you've ignored a lot of times and it was led you to the wrong decision.
yeah,
You could almost overlay those two concepts and explain that this is, how do you explain a gut feeling otherwise?
yeah, yeah. Otherwise, it's just a subjective feeling. Yeah, yeah,
Intuition, it could be a sum of your life experiences, but you've had it since you were small.
yeah,
Gut feeling's always been there, and
yeah,
I was every time I ignore it, it does me wrong. It
yeah,
seems like,
yeah, yeah. You get that, like, should I? No, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do that anyway.
yeah.
Usually.
And true gut feelings don't happen often. They're periodically throughout your
Mm,
life, where it just screams at you. And you could say that, and through meditation, you'll definitely feel more in touch with that, I
oh,
would think.
yeah, that quieting your mind. To me, some people like meditation, not so much. They may have more of a hardwired connection with the spirit team that maybe they had
Mm,
when they were young. Like Nicole, she knew,
mm,
from the get go, and Archangel Michael was there in her life every day. And but for me, I found it very beneficial to quiet my mind, and listen, you know. And then when you start doing that, you start feeling, rather than knowing, you start feeling um, things, presence of beings, feeling my mom and dad with
mm,
me, and feeling that I have a lifelong friend that passed away in 2015, and he is like there all the time for me. And so it's a matter of slowing yourself down and looking through the subcontext, of life, and hearing the deep background information, if that makes any sense.
mm. Just to not combat that idea, but I'm just trying to
Hmm.
get through it just to the other side of it. I think of those churches you see where people are on the ground shaking and
Mm.
God is touching me, and like they're just out of control sometimes and over the
Mm.
top churches.
Yeah, yeah, I've
Um,
seen them.
Sometimes I think if when you sit down to meditate subconsciously, maybe with the intention of connecting with these things, do you think there's in some of these cases, the really crazy church reactions and things like that, almost a placebo effect that you bring on yourself?
It could be. It could be that. It, it could be, except when you start feeling that the information is coming from outside of you. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the only way I could explain that. Uh, and you have to have discernment on that. Like, is this coming from me? Is my imagination? And and you always have to be aware of that. But at the same time, there are times when you just know that this is something else interjecting into my mind. And then you have to, what else do you have to go on? You just have to go with that.
You do, and that's for the faith.
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, and even when you have those thoughts, you don't have to know where they came from. The fact
right,
is that you had
exactly.
them,
Right.
and it's what you do with them
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
really matters. And you can thank yourself for being a genius and thinking up those thoughts, I guess, if you really want to, or you can say, hey, maybe this came from something else.
yeah. Well, and you
And
look at you say like Einstein said he got the idea for um, equals mc squared in a dream. The Nikola Tesla said he got the picture of the electric motor flashed in his mind. He didn't know what it was. He brought it back to his team and said, "Build this," and he didn't even know what it was. Like those types of things. Where does that come from?
yeah,
Um, and
it's progress, and it's yeah. A lot of those. There's a lot of stories where people say they don't know why they thought of these things, but they did.
yeah, yeah,
Um, where do you think psychedelics plays into all this? Because they've been around for forever, and
yeah.
there's definitely a lot of religious ideas tied to them over the years. And how do you think that plays a role in all of this?
So there's a concept called the veil, where there's a veil between physical and spiritual.
Hmm.
And I put a chapter in this book about piercing the veil. Like how can we, here we are, we're talking about, there's things all around us in the physical world. How can we pierce the veil? And so I came up with a few things. One is that there's some people that are born with it. You just, I don't know if you ever met somebody, you're like, oh yeah, I remember when I was out before I came to this life. I
Mm.
was, in another country, another planet, whatever it may be. But they come down, they're here, they know, okay, fine. Trauma is a big thing where that moves people out of this physical reality into a spiritual type, into the spirit world. Um,
How do you mean trauma? Like
Trauma
near-death
like
experiences, or?
no, well, I was thinking more like abuse, very, very harsh times, that happen, those types of
Mhm.
things, forces a lot of people to jump out of their physical sense and then have a lot of connection with angels, with God, and it could be a coping mechanism for them, or it could be the coping mechanism for the spirit world to, interject in themselves, don't
Mhm.
know. The third way is like people like me. You just like, okay, I want to learn meditation. I want to know what that feels like. I want to contact my spirit team. I want to communicate with angels and my parents. I want to feel that, and then lately I want to communicate with my with the ET group, and I want to experience that. So you learn through that. That's the third way. Then the other way is near death experiences,
Mm.
and it was so frustrating in my book because I wanted to keep the chapters somewhat condensed. But I started going down the near death experience research, and I was like fascinated. There's 50 years of experience of research around that, and nothing's really changed. Like no contradictory concepts came up. Everything's been more like providing more detail from when Moody, first published his book, Life After Life. It's the same thing, very common things, and people experience. They see themselves, hovering over their bodies. They go outside. They experience a tremendous amount of love and peace, and a lot of things happen in that. And then the last one is psychedelics as a way to pierce the veil. And
Mhm.
it's been, as you mentioned, it's been happening for thousands of years, in the shamanistic tribes in Australia and Aborigines. And it is a real way to escape, maybe not escape, leave our physical presence and experience things
Mhm.
um, outside of ourselves. Now, the question is it hallucinations, or is it real? That's the big question. Um, but a lot of people that studies that have occurred with psychedelics, it's transformed their lives to a positive degree. Um, when done correctly and in a good and positive way, it can help you kind of get out there and then come back. Just like the NDEs,
Mhm.
almost all people who've had an NDE say that they're not afraid of death anymore. There's nothing to be afraid of. Matter of fact, they even long to go back there because, you know, this purgatory, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, like this sucks. But we're supposed to be learning and we're experiencing things that we can't when we're not in a physical body. But yeah, so all that, to answer your question in a long way, yes.
Well,
Break it down.
that's
So
great. When you mentioned people finding religion or spirituality after trauma, that's interesting because I always, there's a difference. You know, if I have a child and I raise them staunchly in the church, they can, you know, you can almost bake religion into them. You
yeah,
know, if you're that devout, and maybe they become religious. I don't want to say in a dishonest way, but in a coached way throughout their whole life, just
yeah,
to the
yeah,
point where it's part of their brain,
right,
versus finding religion at an older age
right.
when maybe you're an atheist your whole life.
Mm.
To me, those stories are always so much more significant because
Yeah,
most you have your faculties, you're smart, you've got some wisdom behind you. Maybe you were an atheist, maybe you're just neutral,
mm.
and all of a sudden you find God in some way. And yeah, maybe even not traumatized. You know,
Right, yeah.
maybe you even and you just found them. Those stories are always interesting to me, and that seems like it's happening more and more.
And that's part of what I believe is an awakening that's occurring. That people, and some people say it's because the veil is thinning. That we're coming to a point in humanity where physically, more people are meditating in the world than they ever have before. In the United States, it's like skyrocketed from 5 years ago. It could be impacting our global vibrational level to where we are going to, and people call this awakening. They also call an ascension to
Hmm.
the next dimension, mainly fifth dimensional living, where it is all unity and oneness and positive, love and all that, and that a precursor to that people will be will start being sensitive to things, like, visions and dreams and this and that, that will show that they are more connected to spirit than they ever thought they would be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that with the veil thinning, and you know, I think a lot of people are finding meditation because more and more we have more things packing in our thought process every
Yeah,
second of every day. We all
yeah,
walk around with our phone. We've all got earbuds in. We've all got high demanding jobs, families, hustle and bustle of cities. I think, you know, people discover meditation is to just not shut their brain off,
unplug.
but just be peaceful for a second because
Yeah.
I think, you know, you're surprised by how much screen time you had last week per day.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how much time have you just had with an idle mind? And it's very little. Even when you go to bed at night, you're just thinking about a million things sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't allow you just to slow down and meditate. And a lot of cultures put a lot of weight into meditation,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
a
It's part
lot.
of their
And
culture. Yeah.
yeah, so I think more and more people are being driven to meditation by all the bad things in our life, and maybe that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's definitely a net positive. I think I've been dabbling. I try to when I lay in bed, just okay, let's not think about anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's
Yes.
it's very hard to
Oh
do,
my God. I went.
especially for more than 30 seconds in my brain. But
I went to. If you get a chance, there's a branch, not a branch, a extension of Buddhism called Vipassana. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
mm,
It was the same sequence of actions that the Buddha took to become enlightened, and it's the same 10-day thing. Has it survived the 3,500 years or 2,500 years since then? And they're all around the world. I'm sure there's one somewhere. Might have to drive a few hours, but they're usually all around. And it's a 10-day retreat. It's You take the vow of silence, which means you do not talk, you don't have anything to read. They take your phones. You can't even look at someone. You have to avert your eyes, or say that you're going to go. You're not going to interact in any way with anyone for 10 days, and then you spend like 9 hours a day in the Dharma hall. Lotus position, or a bench if you can, closing your mind and trying to. The first 5 days is quieting your mind. Just quiet your mind, like hours and hours of that. And the first 3 days are excruciating. They're like absolutely
You've
excruciating.
done this?
Yes, I did it twice. Yes.
Wow.
And at the end of the 10 days, you feel you something inside you has quieted. It's like it's just a weird thing. Like and it's just like riding a bike. Like I know how to get back to that because you get back in the world and things start ramping up again. But if I get too overwhelmed, I know how to at least try to get back there. But very that was a very profound experience for me.
How terrible did it feel like to get out of there and open your email inbox and just feel
Yeah,
like, oh, here I'm sucked back into this crap again?
even driving in the car, right? Driving, it was kind of like just driving, and this stuff was just coming at me. The scenery kind of got to me, and then yeah, it took me a while to because I had to go back into a pretty hectic job in an advertising agency, so I had to go from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. But
Well, we,
it was
we,
it.
we take jobs and the need to earn money and pay bills as if
Ugh,
it's a normal thing, but it's not at all human nature.
yeah, yeah,
Humans do like to complete tasks and they do like to work and we do like to accomplish things, but that is not at all go sit in a cubicle and
no,
file people's taxes returns. You know,
yeah, yeah.
that's not how our brains are made, and we forget that.
Yeah, the whole, you need the house and the picket fence and the two cars and the vacations and then, children and then they need their stuff and
Yeah.
we're just plugged in to that rat trap, the circle.
It's
Just
funny. I
can't
joke
really.
around with some close friends of ours, and we're like, we just need an acreage, and we need houses that are connected, and we need a garden, and that our kids can just play. And I'm like, it's hippie movement 2.0 today, because
Yeah,
everybody wants that, and everybody's watching people on TikToks doing it,
yeah,
and it gets you out of the rat race because now we have children, and we think about what's best for them, and
yeah,
it's not our current life. It's not that they're so bad, but at a
right.
fundamental level, it's like, yeah, grow your own food and provide for yourself a little more and get out of the hustle and bustle.
Mm,
And it goes right back to the 60s. I mean, that was
yeah, yeah,
a lot of
the
psychedelics,
anti-establishment, yeah,
anti-establishment,
yeah.
and that's coming forward. And that's why earlier I
Mm,
referenced, I think it's the book Jubilee that is
mm,
anti-establishment more so, is it not? And maybe standing up to the
mm,
oppressor, or am I
mm.
thinking of a different gospel that was removed there?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm
I,
not
I
sure.
think that might be it. There is one of the books that does push more of that because some books say pay your taxes and worship the authorities,
Right,
and then there's another book says, well, to an extent,
right.
until they're suppressors, and then you have to stand up to them. That one's been
Yes.
removed.
Hmm.
And so it just makes your head spin. But I think, yeah, like you say, the world, and especially with the internet, because it does help people connect and open their minds a lot.
Yeah.
How has that changed your life? Just the ability to access information. And do you think that's changed your perception of what spirituality is?
No, it's a tool. I always thought of a tool. Even with the AI, like people like, is AI evil? It was like, well, it's as evil as splitting the atom. You know, we can fuel cities with electricity, or we can level towns. It's like
Yeah.
so there's no inherent I guess thing about it. For me, I love it. You could probably believe this. I was working my first job or two without the internet. Like and a fax machine was the state of the art back then. And so for me, writing and researching, it's just a world of it's been a great help in that way. But at the same time, it's like drinking. When they say drinking from a fire hose, you have to develop. The skill is to develop focused attention and discernment because you got to piece through what's really coming at you. Is it an
I,
algorithm?
it's an algorithm, and I do. I do have found personally myself, I don't know what your political stance is, but I do find when I challenge it in certain ideas that it does push hard back against me with the left wing philosophy. It will say, great point, but, and then
Oh,
it
oh,
goes into, and I'm like,
oh,
you
you
know,
mean AI?
AI.
Yeah, yeah, yes,
I'll
yeah.
get into these debates sometimes with Grok, and I'm just like, I just cannot win this argument. Again, you will not stick up for my view, and all I can
Oh,
think about is, well, kids are no longer, people grow up, the news, the TV news, is mainstream media is not on the TV anymore. You don't sit and watch the
mm,
6 o'clock news anymore.
right.
Now these kids growing up are going to be, what can they be taught or influenced with by what AI is telling them?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's my biggest fear with it is when my kids go there for ideas and opinions that they're pre-curated to lean into
Yes.
whatever the big, the people at
Yeah.
the top of these corporations want.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah, I agree.
s-
There is a slant. Somebody has to be, controlling, or guiding or inputting initial things, to search and provide
yeah,
answers on. But yeah, unfortunately, and then with AI, the answers come back so well, so articulated so well. You're kind of like, yeah, maybe. And like, well,
yeah.
no, no, that's not right. Whatever it may be, you have to check that.
And you also have to, on the flip side, you have to be willing to change your mind because it might give you back some
Yes,
perspectives that are,
yes,
would be healthy to shift your perspective into what it is telling you. So how do you cut through that? And that's impossible. I mean, that's the biggest challenge for youth using AI is what the heck? How do I cut through this?
yeah,
So I agree. It's much like the atomic bomb in that way, and it probably will be almost as significant to future generations
yeah.
is AI. It's interesting when you challenge it on religion.
I haven't done that. Yeah,
If
interesting.
I was just playing, I just had a thought in my head when I was driving the other day, so I asked it, if I'm Christian, does that mean that all people live and die Muslim are going to go to hell?
Mm,
And it said, well, Muslims believe that, and it's a
okay.
different belief system. But I said, yeah, but as a Christian, there's only one true religion. So, but it wouldn't take a stance.
Oh, that's interesting.
It
That's
wouldn't
interesting.
choose if there was a true religion. It just said different
Hmm.
people believe this and different people believe that. And I said,
Hmm.
well, someone's got to be right and someone's
Yeah.
got to be wrong.
Hmm.
Who is it?
Yeah.
And you push it on that, and it's a lot of fun because
Yeah.
it won't spit out a result on who's right and who's wrong, and that's
Yeah.
probably a good thing.
Yeah. Maybe it takes your perspective only. Like
Yeah,
it just kind of takes your
yeah,
thoughts and expands on them. It won't push back on you.
yeah. That's those are hot button questions that are hard for a person to answer, let
Yes.
alone
Right.
AI.
Right. Right.
What is the one true religion? Who's got it all right? But uh, what are your thoughts there? I guess that's a great question for you. How do you
Well,
dissect that?
my big emphasis is unity. That we are all connected. And so
Yeah.
the big fear when people say unity, like that's a bad word, especially in the states these days. That we're all connected, but it's connected. It's the hand. It's the hand analogy. That we're individuals at a certain level, but we're all connected. The religions are individual religions, but they're all connected. They may
Yeah.
not, certainly they may fight amongst themselves whether who's the best. Well, I'm an index finger, you couldn't do anything. I'm a thumb, you can't do anything, whatever, but we're all connected at some level. And so that's in general what I would say about that, in that uh, the true, and I think the next phase in human development is that it's called the unity consciousness, which is taught in all religions at some level,
Mm-hmm.
practiced not so much, but I think that is the next phase of human development. And then once we get to that point, that's I think when our planet is going to really take off, as far as the connection with our galactic neighbors.
It's going to take uh, top leadership around the world to embrace religious ideas again because most religions, they are of peace. They are of peace. You know, even at the core, you know, Islam has, there's a peaceful kind of view of Islam, but then there's the people that take it literal and are,
Right.
and go that way with it, which is not of, it's violent against other religions, I guess.
Yes,
But
well, it has been, yeah.
that's got to get washed out. But one thing I think about is you know, humans live on Earth and our room's almost too big. If there was 10 people in the world and we all lived in a 20 by 20 space and we all had different religions, we're probably not just going to start killing each other.
Right, yeah, I see what you're
We're
saying.
going to
Yeah.
learn how to live in that space together.
Right.
But because we're in this on Earth, which is huge, and there's all kinds of expanses, you know, we've got too much room. So then we war, and we're disconnected from each other, and now we can war by the push of a button. But if you put us all in that room together, it would be the opposite. How do we get through this together?
Yeah.
And
So to me, you wonder about that. How are we going to get to that? And you know, through a lot of different sources and readings. And there's people, by the way, there's people out there that, you know, okay, we all have the religious text, right? There's people out there that have been channeling, and what I mean, the same channeling that, that Apostle Paul said, all scripture is God breathed. You know, to me, that's channeling. That's a modern day term for it. You get information from outside.
Right.
But there's people who've been channeling, from different sources, angelic sources, divine sources, ET sources, and they've been doing this for like 30, 40 years. And they map out a tremendously different, a different perspective of humanity, what's going on, some of these things about, awakening, what's happening. And that's what I was happy to just delve into that, because there's a lot of information that, because I was raised in the cover of organized religion, I was told, like, no, no, you go with this, Well, it was always the Christian Bible because I was in Protestant denominations, but anything outside of those things was deemed very unreliable. And so what I think is happening is that there's modern day sources of spirituality that is different from religion. It can overlap at times, but it provides more context and practical helps for us as a species to help us go on our way. And so that's what I think is going to happen. It'll be an opening up of that, of information that was like, yeah, okay. And then people say, well, how do you know that? How do you know that what you're talking about is true? My first answer is like, well, how do you know what you know is true? How do you know, Moses didn't write the first 5 books of the Bible. It was people writing under the name of Moses, all this type of thing. And that, so that I think is going to be a part of that people will start expanding the awareness, take baby steps like me. I say, you can't just go saying like, hey, by the way, I just read something from a fifth dimensional Palladian female, through Lisa Royal Holt that, this is where humanity is right now. He's like, no, you can't lead with that. So that's what I try and do, is that my journey is to help, is to explain my journey, and maybe help others that are looking and navigating their way and maybe a little bit hesitant on new ideas, but at least I provide some background to alleviate fears that you can look beyond what you've been taught and what society has embraced for so long, because there's other things happening.
You're one of the few that explore both the religion side and the scientific side, and you think that there's a connection. So what do you say to the science-based people out there? Where has that research taken you in your growth into further spirituality? What are you seeing on the science in the science world?
Well, in my my whole thing on science, one phrase I use is like, science is our latest best guess, right?
Yep.
It's constantly being revised. Like, look at the pyramids now. I don't know if you caught it, but they're backing up the dates. They're pyramid, Great Pyramid, 4,500, 5,000 years ago. Now they're all revising that back, and it takes a while because you get these prestigious universities that have hired staff and and published articles on their hypothesis of how old the pyramids were, and you're not going to change that overnight. So it's constantly being revised, and the third part is that science usually follows reality, sometimes for thousands of years. I opened my book with Copernicus, and like the story of Copernicus. Like, growing up, he knew something was wrong. Something's not right. We all don't revolve around, the Earth, the sun and the moon don't revolve around the Earth. But he couldn't say that. But
Yeah.
Ptolemy said that. Aristotle said that. The scientific community, which was the church, said that. And it took him, it took a lot of guts for him to write that book. And then which he published on his deathbed because he knew that things weren't going to go well with him if he published it earlier. But in any case, so science to me is something. The basic thing is our latest best guess, and we have to all right. So Newtonian physics brought in the scientific materialism, right? We can measure things, we can predict things, and that's impacted our world for hundreds of years, because now we're thinking like, oh, if it can't be observed and measured, it's not real. If it can't be in a laboratory, it's not real. And that goes against a lot of reality that's out there, that's been around for many, many years. But we still kind of default to that. And now quantum physics starts blurring those lines. Because we know things happen, we know quantum entanglement, we know teleportation, and we experience it, but we just don't know how it happens. So that to me kind of cracks in the door, puts a crack in the door with how we view reality and what can happen.
Yeah, one that really got me, if you're familiar, is the double slit experiment.
Yes, absolutely. That got me too.
Blows your mind. If no one's familiar, it's shooting electrons at, was it 2 slits or one off the start?
Two slits. Yeah.
And then if you want to describe it, probably better in terms than I can, but when you're under observation, you get a different result.
Yeah. So they fired electrons at 2 slits, and the hypothesis was that the electrons would go through and kind of pile up and make a pile and collect at the opposite of those 2 slits, like 2 piles. But what happened is that there were several piles across the catchment material, and so they said that, wait a minute, that's acting more like a wave. So what happened was that when the particle went through the slit, it turned into a wave function, and that when they put cameras in, tried to observe that happening, it happened even more so when it was being observed. So that was the thing, that particles can change to waves, and that observation impacts that transition.
Well, when it was observed, it went back to standard
Oh,
collection.
yes, correct, yes.
The waves went away.
Yes, right.
And
right.
did they, I haven't followed, some people do say there's an explanation for that, but I haven't heard one.
No.
Yeah, if there is, but there's, the quantum level, we have no idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just shows how much in the infancy of science we truly are, like
yeah,
you say.
And that one, he's pretty well known. He's an Asian fellow physicist, Mikio Kaku.
Yeah, the physics of the impossible.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
And
read that book,
was,
great book.
He was saying that a lot of these mysterious things are solved when you start bringing in consciousness to the equation. Like, it's all part of a larger, unseen, undetected consciousness. Then things start making sense. And that's what, when I say, it kind of brings back to the oneness of who we really are. Are we separate beings from each other? No. Are we separate from source? No. Are we you know, we're all part of that. So that, I think science is, it's good to keep grounded. Keep one in my professors at my when I did my doctoral degree. I was assigned one professor to mentor me through my whole process. He says, because you like to keep one foot in science, but you do like to step outside every now and then. And that's what we have to do.
Well, I think Stephen Hawking even later in his life admitted that I think there's a possibility of a God.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think he thought that his whole life. He thought that towards the end. And he's a great guy to be saying that. I mean, who else? I mean, that's like Einstein
Right.
saying there's a possibility of a God.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so how would you define your own religion or spirituality today? Now coming from the church and now exploring all this, how do you sum up your beliefs?
Well, I don't belong to any organized religion, but I do, believe that I'm a child of God, meaning that I'm a part of God, that there is a divine part of me that is rampant in the universe, but also part of source. So I'm connected in that sense. If you heard the phrase eternal being, living a temporary physical life. I believe I've lived many lives. I believe in reincarnation. I've seen visions of me in other lives. I've been told I've been living other lives. So there is a journey, a spiritual journey. And the core principle of everything is love, and unconditional love. That is the light. There is darkness out there, but the universe runs on those higher frequency love, unity energies.
So you do have a book coming up next month. What can people expect out of that book? What are you said it's more about the awakening that people are approaching. Is it kind of what we've been discussing? Is there some new ideas you're going to present in that book?
Yeah, it's really a guidebook, and it goes along the lines very much of our discussion, which is really great. I thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do a few of these, and you are a natural host.
Well, thank you.
And it's the idea that, kind of taking, and I don't get into this in the book, but it's my journey going through organized religion, seeking to have a connection with spirit, seeking to understand who I am in reality, and then experiencing parts of me that I never knew about before, like our multidimensionality, or oneness. Oneness, I have a meditation in there, how to experience oneness with the divine. And it's very powerful. It's really cool. And then I propose that we, and agree with many other people, that we are on an ascension path, that even though you look at the news and you see all this crap going on in the world, it's the storm before the calm, and that there is going to be a calm because we are ascending into the fifth dimensional, the more unity-loving, positive facet. How that happens, don't know exactly when, don't know exactly, but supposedly it's set in stone. And so that's what I kind of work through, and then and it covers so many different facets. So if somebody wants to check out, what is it like to be multidimensional? What's the science of consciousness? I map out what our galactic civilizations, and go into depth with a few of our interstellar family. And so I kind of map out the whole thing, and wherever a person is in their journey in this stage, they can go there and know that I'm not proposing, I don't have an agenda. I put everything out on the table and say, this is what I've heard, this is what I've learned. And that in sum will help people on their journey and their own awakening if they're on that path.
Well, I'm holding myself back from prodding you more on some of those ideas. I'll have to wait for the book like everybody else. Then maybe we could dive into it again
Yes.
later. But
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, thank you
Yeah.
for coming on. Very
Yes.
interesting.
So the book is Awkward Awakening, Finding Your Way Home, and it'll be on Amazon, both paperback and Kindle, mid-November. The audiobook version is available now on Audible, and so looking forward to that. And then you can reach me at angelandtraining.org.
Good.
I have all my information. You can send me, send me a message, ask questions, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much.